Welcome to Section 7, Containers. In this section, we'll look at installing container support and configuring the Docker service on Windows Server. Then we'll spend some time downloading base Windows images that we can use with Docker. And then we'll spend time running containers and then building our own container from one of the base images. So for this section, we'll have two servers as part of our infrastructure. We're going to keep our domain controller up and running. And then we're going to create a new server called Docker01, and we're going to use that for configuring the containers service. So let's move ahead into our first video, installing container support. Welcome to installing container support. Now in this video, we're going to enable that container support for Windows Server, which essentially boils down to downloading and installing Docker as a service on Windows Server. So let's just jump right in. I'm going to connect over to my Docker01 host that I've created and joined to the domain. You can see here Docker01 on the domain. And for this, we're going to need PowerShell. So I'll go ahead and open up a PowerShell prompt. And sort of similar to what we did in the last section where we installed BSC modules, we are going to install a package provider using the same install module command here. So we'll do install module. The name for this one is Docker MSFT provider, and we can use the repository parameter to specify that we want this from the PS gallery. And I'll go ahead, I'll leave force off for now so you can see anything that might pop up along the way. So in this case, again with the new server, we need NuGet on here. So I'll go ahead and let it install that. And here we're prompted again that the PS gallery is an untrusted repository. Go ahead and say yes for now. And there, we have that provider installed. Now we have one additional command. We need to install the Docker package, which is going to be the binaries for Docker. So that's install-package, name, Docker, and then we'll specify that the provider to use for that should be that Docker MSFT provider. And this should go grab that package and install it, and once it's done, we'll be prompted for a reboot. Go ahead, we're getting that trusted warning again. Okay, and we see that the install is completed, but a restart is required, so I'll go ahead and restart the computer. Now, while we're waiting for that to restart, let's talk about the different options we have here for running containers on Windows Server. We have the standard version where there's going to be the shared kernel, and then you have the dedicated run space for each container. There's also something called Hyper-V isolation, which essentially runs a small kernel inside of a Hyper-V virtual machine and then creates the containers under that. If you've used Docker under Windows 10, then by default you're using that form, the Hyper-V isolation. Otherwise, you can stick with the standard, and you'll be sharing the kernel and resources from the host. So we're going to stick with standard for the duration of this section. Feel free, if you go again to docs.microsoft.com, there's a great amount of information on container support, and you can play with the different isolation modes and see what best meets your needs. All right, so my server is back, and I'm going to open up a PowerShell prompt. And at this point, we should be able to run the Docker command and see some syntax here. There we go, the different commands to run. So one more command that we can run here is docker run hello-world. And hello-world is a container that they have to essentially test if your Docker system is running. So you can see here that it just gives you a message and then exits. You can see it just kind of walks you through how it's generating this message here. If you run that command and you don't have that image already on your system, which you shouldn't if you just installed the service, it's going to take a moment to download and extract everything. And so that's basically running Docker. Again, if we look through the commands, we can see what images we've downloaded. So we have that hello-world is in our local repository here. And then we can see which containers are running. That's actually no containers right now because we ran that in the foreground and it just generated that message and exited. So you can use docker ps with -a to see a list of things that have run. You can see I ran this a couple of times before I did it here. Also why we didn't see a big download message, but we can see what happens. Ran 3 minutes ago, 2 minutes ago, and then it would exit with a status of 0. So that's the basics of installing the Docker components. Everything is on the system now, and we're ready to move forward